Hello everyone, welcome. I am Sensei Joao Paulo and I bring to you this week another video where I present results of my researches into the Bugei universe related to martiality themes, anthropology, spirituality and cultural aspects to which the Bugei universe is inserted. This week, we introduce the results of researches related to a very interesting method called Tekagi no Ho. I show in this video examples and technical demonstrations performed by Shidoshi Jordan with Shidoshi Luiz in Valencia, Spain, and Shidoshi Thiago with Utideshi Adriano in Brazil, which illustrates the concepts inherent to this Shizen technique. Let's start by checking the translations of the ideograms related to kanji that comprise Tekagi no Ho. In this way are the kanji te, that means hand, and kagi, that means hook, barb, gaff. So, by the union of these two kanji, we have tekagi that can be translated as short gaff, hand gaff, hook on a wooden handle. Following, we have the particle no that indicate the possessives in the Japanese grammar. Finally, we have the kanji ho, which in this case can be translated as a method. Therefore, Tekagi no Ho can be interpreted as the method of hook's hand. This method presents itself as Shizen in its origin. It is worth remembering that the Shizen are indigenous people in Japan who bear the cultural, anthropological, martial, and spiritual legacy that comprise the arts taught within the Kaze no Ryu Bugei. In this way, to understand this method, it is explained by the masters that the Shizen people, along many years, sought to adapt instruments that were commonly used in their daily activities so that they could be used in warfare forms. Such adaptations on the part of Shizen people were necessary because of constant conflicts and oppression that occurred against these people in ancient times. In this way, they sought to adopt this hook that was used mainly in fishing activities or during food hunting as a tool to be used against opponents' attacks, ambushes, and other types of threats that could occur in those rebellious times. It is common knowledge that Japan is surrounded by sea and has a geographical structure with many rivers in its relief. Thus, by observing on a historical analysis Tekagi no Ho, it is found that the Shizen people had the ideal conditions for the development of techniques that would use this fishing hook. The Tekagi was an instrument used to collect the fish lifted and put into the vessel for further use. Thus, the Shizen people, perhaps by necessity or even by their own perception of the potential of this tool as a weapon, began to develop techniques using Tekagi as the main instrument in order to create conditions and technical elements with sufficient capacity to overcome any kind of threat when needed. As we can see in the video, the moves that are being demonstrated in kimono are just pointing at some dangerous spot on the uke's body, aims to preserve the uke and also serve for the correct understanding of this method, since it must be understood and considered that the hook violently pierces where is being shown or placed Tekagi. In a reality situation, there wasn't a concern about the welfare of the opponent, and the Tekagi was used to cause the most possible damage to the opponent in his performance, ones that were a rated skating instrument. Some types of Tekagi could have serrations in the area near the tip of the hook, which made this utensil even more dangerous and lethal when it hit the opponent. Within the range of possibilities of these damage points shown in this video are the main fibers and muscle groups, vital points as arteries, veins, and supporting structures as tendons, bones, and tissues or organs may serve severe damage when hit by a skating object, such as the Tekagi, which in addition to pierce the reached place were causing internal damage and various lacerations during the construction and evolution of the movements. In order to get an idea of dangerous and effectiveness of techniques using Tekagi no Ho, we will check the structure of some areas of the human body that can be achieved. For example, we have neck. The cervical portion of the human spine comprise 7 bony segments, with cartilaginous discs between each vertebral body. The neck supports the weight of the head and protects the nerve that carries sensory and the motor information from the brain down to the rest of the body. In addition, the neck is highly flexible and allows the head to turn and flex in all directions. From top to bottom, the cervical spine is gently curved in convex forward fashion. In the middle line, below the chin, can be felt the body of the hyoid bone, just below which is prominence of the thyroid cartilage called Adam's apple, better marked in man than in woman. Still lower, the cricoid cartilage is easily felt, while between this and the suprasternal notch, the trachea and isthmus of the thyroid gland may be made out. At the side of the outline of stereomastoid muscle is the most striking mark. It divides the anterior triangle of the neck from the posterior. The upper part of the former contains the submaxillary gland, also known as the submandibular gland, which lies just below the posterior half of the body of the jaw. The line of the common and the sternocarotid arteries may be marked by joint the sternoclavicular articulation to the angle of the jaw. The 11th or spine accessory nerve corresponds to a line drawn from a point midway between the angle of the jaw and the mastoid process to the middle of the posterior border of the sternomastoid muscle, and thence across the posterior triangle to deep surface of the trapezius. The sternal-jugular vein can usually be seen through the skin. It runs in a line drawn from the angle of the jaw to the middle of the clavicle, and close to it are some small lymphatic glands. The anterior jugular vein is smaller and runs down about half an inch from the middle line of the neck. The clavicle or collarbone forms the lower limit of the neck. Ribs. Humans have 24 ribs, 12 pairs. The first 7 sets of ribs are directly attached to the sternum through the costal cartilage. Rib 1 is unique and harder to distinguish than other ribs. It is a short, flat, C-shaped bone. The vertebral attachment can be found just below the neck, and the majority of this bone can be found above the level of the clavicle. Ribs 2 through 7 have more traditional appearance and become longer and more curved as they progress downwards. The following 5 sets are known as false ribs, 3 of these sharing a common cartilaginous connection to the sternum, while the last 2, 11th and 12th ribs, are termed floating ribs or vertebral ribs. They are attached to the vertebrae only, and not to the sternum or cartilage coming off the sternum. The rib cage is separated from the lower abdomen by the thoracic diaphragm, which controls breathing. When the diaphragm contracts, the thoracic cavity is expanded, reducing intrathoracic pressure and drawing air into the lungs. Hand. A hand is a prehensile, multi-fingered organ located at the end of forearm. Fingers contain some of the densest areas of nerve endings on the body and the richest source of tactile feedback, and have the greatest positioning capability of the body. Thus, the sense of touch is intimately associated with hands. The human hand has 5 fingers and 27 bones, not including the sesamoid bone, the number of which varies between people, 14 of which are the phalanges, proximal, intermediate, and distal, of the fingers. The metacarpal bones connect the fingers and the carpal bones of the wrist. Each human hand has 5 metacarpals and 8 carpal bones. Eyes. Eyes are the organs of the vision. They detect light and convert it into electrochemical impulses in neurons. Face. The front of the human head is called the face. It includes several distinct areas, of which the main features are: the forehead comprises the skin beneath the hairline, bordered laterally by the temples and inferiorly by the eyebrows and ears. The eyes sitting in the orbit and protected by eyelids and eyelashes. The distinctive human nose, shape, nostrils, and nasal septum. The cheeks covering the maxilla and mandibula or jaw. The development of Tekagi as a method allowed that the Shizen people could constantly adapt and develop improvements for implementing techniques of this weapon, and can combine the use of this weapon with Aikijutsu movements, Jujutsu, and other forms, using all the versatility that the masters verified for his studies and technical enhancements. Similarly, the development of techniques in Tekagi no Ho also sought ways to defend against other arts and weapons, which the opponents could use as Kenjutsu, Yaijutsu, Batojutsu, Tantojutsu, Aikijutsu, Jujutsu, and others. It should be remembered that the study or training of any martial arts of our school should always be accompanied by an authorized representative person of Kaze-no-ryu Bugei lineage, which has the conditions and technical adequate training for the safe conduct of any art or technique. Thereby, it is not recommended the practice of any art without the assistance and monitoring of a teacher. Well, I say goodbye, and if you wish, contact us suggesting future topics for new videos. Stay well and see you. Bye bye.